Great to see you all today, chatters. This is Henry here, and we'll be with you all in just a moment.
Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Thursday, January 12th. It's another edition of Wisecrack Live. I'm Michael Burns here with producer Henry. We got a big show planned for you, everyone. You know, I would say that even if I didn't think it was a big show, but I do think it's a big show and that it's going to be good. So trust that I'm being honest. On the back half of the show today, we're going to talk about the movie M3gan. Because it's kind of interesting. We'll talk about technology and capitalism and how it's all trying to kill us and stuff like that. So we'll get into that in the back half. The thing I'm excited to talk about in the first part of the show, or the guest we're having the first part, Yedoye Travis, comedian, creator of things, actor, writer, one of the founders of Jaded Forum, is going to join us, which I'm really excited about. Someone who I'm sure many of you are very familiar with his work. Someone who I like a lot as a comedian, as a person who is I would say like critical of that industry within it. And Henry, did you see Yedoye in the Discord asking a question? Awesome. So very excited about that. We'll bring him on in just a second. We'll do our requisite intro stuff first. And yeah, you might notice the title is about comedy. I really want to talk to him about issues around the possibility of comedy. And I think, I saw some people already in the chat being like, is this too clickbaity? I think the point in talking about comedy this way as well is to think about it structurally. So we'll get into that. We're going to get into that. Let's do some housekeeping right off the bat. We got some videos this week. Here's a fun story for everyone. We had a video come out Monday. It's on optimism and whether or not it's killing us. You can see it. It's on the channel. Video goes up. Does really well the first hour or two. And we keep track of how well videos do. And what's up, everyone in the chat? So glad that you're here. Love to see all the green usernames. And yes, please like the stream. It means a lot and it helps us. I hate to be pandering, but it is what it is. Speaking of YouTube punishing us, we put this video up on Optimism on Monday. Did really well for the first hour. And we have our little graph of how a video is doing. And the shit just like flatlined and went down. And it turned out YouTube spent 3 days accidentally taking views away from people all across the platform, which is cool because that's how like money is determined, like AdSense money, sponsor deals, the way people make stuff. Julian's here. What's up, free thinkers? I forgot that last week was Free Thinker Week. And what's up to all my top G's? Really great thing too after last week of having people in this chat talking about why Andrew Tate was good, and everything that's come out about him this week means he's even more fucking odious. So great chat. But yeah, so the optimism video got throttled by YouTube and then the numbers went back up. But it's just like, what a world where our like livelihood as a channel is dependent on some people who work at YouTube, I guess, clicking the wrong button and then our views go down. So that's cool. That's a cool thing. What else? Since we were last together, we put out a video on Ticketmaster. It came out last Friday. You might have noticed Taylor Swift is on the thumbnail. But I was excited about that one. For anyone who likes live music and live events, Ticketmaster has definitely ruined your life to some extent. So we got into it in that video. Check that out. Another one where someone could just say, are you guys basically just saying that that capitalism is bad? And yeah, we are. What's coming up? I always do the thing where I forget to open my calendar where I tell you what videos are coming. Henry, have you edited any videos recently?
We have Rich People on TV coming up, and I'm working that. But
okay, awesome. So I remember some of the other ones. So yeah, we got a video coming out for y'all on Rich People on TV. One of the issues there is we like watching these shows about rich people. A lot of comedies especially are about rich people, and something we're looking at, and thinking of shows here like Succession and The White Lotus, we talk in the video a bit about whether or not it functions as satire, or if in this kind of Nietzschean way, it provides this way for us to passively enjoy the failures of the wealthy and sort of via that act, we continue to affirm those people in their positions in society so that nothing gets questioned. And we bring up Nietzsche in that video because of that classic critique of the sort of, what he calls the slave morality and the genealogy of morals, where religion creates this way of thinking by which we we turn our oppression, our failure into a virtue. So that's coming. You're gonna watch that video. We have another video coming out on free speech. Oh, that's coming out pretty soon. We have a video coming out on free speech and why we're maybe all misunderstanding free speech. So be on the lookout for that. And there's one other video we filmed yesterday. Oh, kids in politics. You might notice this, that every right-wing politician talks about the children. We have to protect the children and how they like bring guns to drag story hours and stuff like that. So we're gonna get into that as well. Excited to talk about that. Got some other good stuff coming as well. Can't talk too much about it. Got some shorts and TikTok shit coming. Made a TikTok on M3gan. Made a TikTok short video. It's going to be on shorts and TikTok yesterday about Prince Harry and the royal family and how Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are now just becoming, different types of grifters. But I'll let you guys watch that. Again, thank you for being here. People probably know this. You see people like Budget Balling, Caleb Fried Rice, Melagello, Dude Abides, Ian, Devin, all these people in the chat with the green usernames is because they are members of the channel. It doesn't mean they're better than anyone else. You're all equally great. But it helps us out. It's a good way to support us. So if you want to do that, you can. If you end up gifting some subs, then you become Lord of the Chat. I don't create these hierarchical systems; they pre-exist, and we just affirm those. We affirm what exists. We don't want to criticize the systems. Also, we have a Patreon. You know what that is. It's a way that we beg you for some of your money in exchange for some extra content, but it helps us out. We have some stuff coming out on Patreon soon as well. Caspi and Josh, I see you with your green usernames as well. And the thing that I'm going to tell you to do over and over throughout today is to like the stream, because when you all like the stream, YouTube favors us. And as we talked about over and over, we don't understand how YouTube works. We know that it punishes us. We know that we go to meetings at work where we think to ourselves, are we going to lose our jobs because an analytic? Whoa, Mellow Jello coming in, gifting 5 memberships. There we go. Thank you so much. Creating good energy right off the bat. We love sharing economy stuff. Wow. And then Jacob said, fuck you. I'm gonna up the stakes. That was so quick too. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching stuff. Henry, any important housekeeping updates on your end before we get things cooking?
I think we are ready for our guest.
Okay, great. Yeah, if you want to bring Yedoye on, that would be awesome. And wow. Just like that. Wow, and they're going crazy. I'm gonna vamp for a second while we work this out. We have our flawless system, our flawless and smooth system. Wow, Hassan Harris in the chat says, Mr. Travis had one of the greatest jokes I've seen on the Comedy Central channel. Glad to tune in this week. Well, don't suck up yet. Maybe you won't like. Maybe you just like his jokes, and then we starts talking. You're gonna be like, I don't know about this guy.
Okay, there we go. I just switched. My inputs were all fucked up. I hate Discord sometimes.
We hit it most times, so there you go. And yeah,
no,
yeah, and then you're welcome to do audio or video. We want you to do what's comfortable for you.
Okay, I'm comfortable doing video. I don't. It's not giving me the option to turn my things on, for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think so. Do you have the little button in the bottom left corner?
Yeah, it's giving me you can't stream into this channel.
Oh, that's fun. Is that a permissions thing on our end, Henry?
Probably.
Oh, cool.
I'm guessing a thing.
Yeah. Well, how about Henry? Do you want to look at that? We can just start talking if that's cool. First of all, Yedoye, thank you for being here. Nice to chat with you. I got to do the requisite introduction thing for everyone in the stream where I talk about things that you have done.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, but if you guys aren't already well familiar with Yedoye's work, lots of stuff have written on TV, written for comics, which is very cool. And I think we have an audience that really likes stuff like that. Comedy Central stand-up special, done comedy basically all over. One of the founders of a thing that I want to talk about later that I think is very cool, called Jaded Forum, that hopefully everyone can look into later, and we can talk about that, and you can clue people to what that is about. Was on the Vulture list of comedians to watch. Done a lot of very cool things. So I want to start with this question. When one looks at all of the things that you have done and accomplished in the comedy and entertainment space, they might then ask themselves, why is this person seemingly so critical and so angry about things within the industry? And I think if you all don't follow Yedoye on Twitter, you should. You had a really good thread, I think earlier this week or end of last week, getting into some of your gripes with how we think about comedy and content creation and how this whole system works. So if I'm someone who is coming up in that world, I look at you as someone who's done all of these things that I can only dream of doing. Why are you still annoyed at that world?
You know, what's really funny is that, like, once you get super deep into this world, I think people are less inclined to believe you when you tell them the truth about it. It's a very funny thing. You're just like, you just tell people what you're looking at, and they're just like, no, but you're good. You're happy. You made it. and they're
Hmm.
saying that very much from an outside perspective, and it's like, I think, something about the world of entertainment. I say something as though I don't know specifically what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
There are things
Well,
about the
we
world.
can slow reveal it.
Yeah, well, there are things about the world of entertainment that kind of, damn, sometimes you start a thought and then you don't remember how you wanted to there things about the world of entertainment that kind of like they put you in this position where you're just supposed to kind of feel grateful and move
Hmm.
on, you know? And that's partly because if you actually have like a material analysis of what's going on in
Hmm.
entertainment, it's like, um, it sort of serves as this beacon of hope for people like me who don't come from money or who don't come
Yeah.
from all types of connections and whatnot, where like maybe you can make it out of where you came from or like your economic status, you know. And
Hmm.
and I think there's a narrative that sort of like disentangles it from capitalism entirely,
Hmm.
or you don't really view it as part of that system that is
Yeah.
also serving to create the conditions that you're trying to break out of, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
so when people look at the entertainment world, they just kind of look at it as a way out as
Hmm.
opposed to something that is perpetuating the exact same system that it's getting you out of. And so there's like a kind of a paternalistic like hero dynamic, you know, it's like it's a
Hmm.
white savior thing, you know what I'm saying? Where like where they try to take all this credit for like pulling you out of your circumstances when the reality is they created the circumstances in the first place. Um,
Yeah.
so it's hard to be grateful to the system that's really just that's creating the same
Mhm.
conditions that I'm just doubling down and saying the same
No,
thing.
no, but I think that makes really clear sense. And I think, yeah, there's not often a lot of like structural analysis about those things. I mean, I think it's interesting too that I feel like with a few different areas of work, entertainment work is definitely one of them. I think a thing that maybe plays into that as well is how much people see those things more as almost like a spiritual calling or vocation than
Yes.
they do work. The two areas I have worked in as an adult are the academic world and the content and entertainment world, and the commonality I've noticed in both of them is people don't view them as work. They view it as, if one is like an academic or a writer, it's their spiritual calling, and if they can find someone to pay them for that, they're stoked on that. But it's like who they are. And I feel like with comedy writing and entertainment, it's a similar thing where that becomes this spiritual calling, which I feel then sets you up to be exploited because you're not a worker. You're not someone who's doing labor. You're someone who's like expressing your fundamental humanity in that way. So you're
Yeah.
more thankful when someone gives you that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think Graeber made that point the best.
Hmm.
Just like the privilege of doing work that's actually fulfilling or valuable to
Hmm.
society also removes the like financial incentive for the people that are hiring you. So like, um, basically, you're just so lucky to do this work that why would you, you know, if you really love it, why would you even accept
Yeah.
money? And the reality of entertainment is like, I mean, coming from a
Yeah.
stand-up comedy world is I can tell you straight up, it was a lot more fun when I wasn't making money from it.
Hmm.
Um, and I think people can take that to mean like you're happy to just be a starving artist and you're happy to, but the reality is I just don't, the feeling of having it commodified and then
Hmm.
having my livelihood depend on it just
Hmm.
adds an element to it that is damaging to the art itself. And I think, I guess in regards to the title of this stream, is comedy useless? I would say, I would say absolutely not, but maybe like with
Hmm.
uh, a little grimness to it, where
Yeah.
I think I think the use of it is a lot more dangerous than we give it credit for. You know?
Yeah. Well, I think you guys got into this a little bit. I think it was on the most recent Jaded episode, which I want to talk about in a bit and
Yeah.
make sure everyone is aware of that. But it was the most recent Zach Fox one. I'm pretty sure you all were talking about sort of the economics of entertainment. And I remember, I think there was a point where Zach was even talking about how all of the late night shows and stuff like that are all basically doing the same thing. You're functioning to promote some sort of like product or ideology. And I think that sometimes with, well, I'll go back by saying this. One thing, a reason I was excited to talk to you is we made a lot of people mad on the channel a couple weeks ago because we did a video about comedy and politics.
Uh-huh.
And people got really mad at me because I said that Ricky Gervais isn't funny for making trans jokes. And what I was told is that actually he's really funny, and I was
Oh,
missing the
really?
point. Yeah, he's a truth teller, is what I have
Oh,
learned.
yeah.
So
Oh,
you
yeah.
can update your notes on this too. But people,
Before
you
I
know,
say anything about Ricky
yeah,
Gervais, can I say
yeah,
bitch on this?
yeah. We can say whatever
Okay.
we want. It's a very
Okay,
free
great.
space. It's a
Okay, so
space for free thinkers and boundaries pushers.
okay, great. So I'll say this with a little less nuance than you probably did, but
Yeah.
Ricky Gervais is a bitch, dog. Like every 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 like take, every stance that Ricky Gervais has ever taken, like it's it's always like riding the coattails of somebody else who's already done it. You know, it's like um now this was obviously with his last special where he got all this. I don't even know if I can call it heat because
Not really.
the door was already open for him to say all that stuff. It was after Chappelle had done special after special after special bashing trans people, and now he comes in like, I guess people are responding to this, and now I can come out as like a truth teller, or just like martyr
Hmm.
for for telling it like it is. When the reality,
Well, yeah.
Chappelle already opened the door. I don't know if you've seen the
Yeah.
him on the Talking Funny interview he did with Seinfeld and Louis and Chris Rock a few years ago.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
like
yeah,
2012, I guess.
yeah.
I remember the last time I watched it. You see, Louis opened the door of saying the N word. Chris
Yeah. Hmm.
Rock rolls with it. Seinfeld kind of shirks it off and is like, throws his hands up. It's like, I don't see the funny in it. I don't get it. And then you can see the moment in Ricky Gervais's eyes where he sees that nobody's mad at Louis for saying it. Chris
Hmm.
Rock is kind of letting it slide, and then the gears turn, and you see him like he starts saying it, and like is trying to encourage Seinfeld to say it, and you can see that moment where he like takes this license from other people who've already opened that door, and I just like that to me is Ricky Gervais's whole MO. I don't think he's said anything. I don't think he's ever said anything that's even like originally offensive. You know?
Yeah, it's not even interesting. And the wild thing too is like, we make our tiny little YouTube video that even just asks some questions about him. And I have to read all these comments and get DMs about how he's basically, like you said, a martyr. And then the next week I see that he's playing a series of shows at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles, one of the largest outdoor concert venues in the country,
Yeah.
which is, but the dual reminders of like, A, he is fine regardless, and it's just that constant reminder that the cancellation discourse means also almost nothing because these people are still going to make money, and
Yeah.
B, like there's still tens and tens of thousands of people who are willing to spend $200 to watch this man say the same shit
Right.
in a live setting.
Right.
But what I wonder to like zoom out a little bit, I guess, riffing on that question is, so in that thing we were talking about comedy and its relationship to politics and critique, and it's something I don't know, I'm very interested in, and it's something I always go back and forth on. There's times where I believe that comedy as a form of art does have that ability to like tell truth and speak to power and these sorts of things. Other times I think that maybe that's just a nice way for me to convince myself that things that are fun can be like revolutionary practice. But something, again, I think you guys talked about this on Jaded, is this distinction between the value of comedy as a performative thing where someone like says stuff that changes people's minds, or, and a thing that I really like that y'all brought up, the idea that the structures within it are the things that need to change, not so much the message. And if I'm getting what you said on Jaded a little wrong, apologies for that. But that was one takeaway I had,
Yeah.
and I thought that was really interesting.
No, that's pretty much it. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the main things we touch on is that there just has to actually be material practice behind what you're talking about. You
Mm-hmm.
can, I mean, you can talk about nice, I mean, for most people, I guess liberal or even leftist socialist
Mm-hmm.
things, but like if there's no practice behind it, then what is the point? And so I think in a lot of ways people just need to reframe their understanding of comedy in the sense
Mm-hmm.
that like it is useful in sort of swaying public opinion, and I think that's what a
Mm-hmm.
lot of more right-leaning comedians don't give it credit for.
Mm-hmm.
They don't give credence to it. They kind of have this like contradictory view um where they think comedy is so important, and
Mm-hmm.
but they also simultaneously deny the actual importance that is there, which is in the messages that it can spread and normalize. But you know, that's for people who are on the right, where their politics are already sort of in practice in the real world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
they can literally speak things into action. You see this wave of like, I won't say it, I won't make a direct correlation and, at risk of being sued or anything, to Chappelle's trans bashing, to this wave of anti-trans
Mm-hmm.
legislation that comes right after it. I won't say there's a direct correlation, but it's happening at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just it's a feedback loop. Whereas if you're talking about systems change, which is what we talk about on Jaded Forum,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
if you're talking about creating a whole new context where, you know, the understanding of most things that we have is not even going to be the same understanding, then you have to, one, articulate that in a way that is accessible to people, and two, you have to actually show people what it looks like in practice. Um, so there's the there's the actually doing it, and there's the showing people what it looks like, which
Yeah.
words can only go so far in that.
No, for sure. And like I think you see that, like in film and TV, it's been cool to see, more and more shows and movies that get made do have some level of at least vague social or class critique. But then these things are still being made in structural ways that are exploiting labor left and right.
Yes.
Yeah. And like, once again, the stuff you all talked about. And I think, you know, I, there was an interesting moment out here a couple years ago. Cause, I think after it was like summer 2020, deep COVID, George Floyd gets murdered, protests start happening, and it seems like everyone in the comedy world got very involved, very vocal. And I noticed in LA especially, a lot of people, and out here I've existed more in like the sketch and improv world because nerds, self included. But
Yeah.
sorry, stand-ups are the cool kids in my mind. But
We gotta reframe your
everyone,
thinking.
yeah, no, just go with it, especially New York stand-ups. I mean, wow, those are
Yeah.
the football players of the comedy world. But like there's a lot of people I knew out here who I thought of as is almost like apolitical, or folks that there was, people that got upset in the scene out here when people weren't like wearing Hillary Clinton t-shirts 5 or 6 years ago, who now all of a sudden, had like Fred Hampton pictures on their Instagram or something like that, which in a
Yeah.
sense, like, cool, like, let's go in that direction. But then this thing happened that I loved, is that a year or so ago, one of the big theaters out here, the UCB theater in LA, got purchased by a private finance company that mostly does weapons manufacturing. It's like
Uh-huh.
25% of this company's business is making weapons that then get used to like kill Yemenis children and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And everyone like ran, and I'm maybe being a little extreme here, but everyone like ran back to that theater on their hands and knees wanting unpaid stage time. And a lot of these were like the same folks who made their brand for like the last 18 months, that they're
Yeah.
now these like radicals. And it
Yeah.
just reminded me that like when you detach the ideas from the structures that enable those ideas to exist, it just becomes this more of like a brand thing
Yeah.
than
And
anything else.
and I think that speaks to two things. It speaks to one, this idea that comics comedians are supposed to, you know what, maybe I'll make 3 points here. Comedians are supposed to
Do it.
be these people who speak truth to power and all these things, but it's so, the way the comedy industry is now, it's so entangled with capital and like at risk of sounding communist, bourgeois literature,
You're allowed to here. It's fine.
liberalism, you know.
Yeah.
But like just like bourgeois idealism and all these things. And so like,
Mm.
I mean, I said in that thread that like the people that are getting all these specials on these big platforms are people who are already so deep in the industry that their relationships are too closely tied to people at Netflix, HBO, and all these places to ever have a real deep critique of them. You know, they're too embedded in that. And the same goes
Mhm.
with clubs. You know, there's whole documentaries about the history of the Comedy Store and how that's where like one of the biggest comic strikes happened, and yet people still talk about the Comedy Store as this like home for comedians. And like I've done shows there, I've performed there and
Mhm.
had a good time, but like I think you also have to consider the actual material relationship that they've had with the people that make them their
Mhm.
money, you know. And like um when you talk about like, I'm sorry, could you repeat some of the last things you said? I'm losing my I'm losing
Oh
my
my God, no, it's totally fine. We're talking about the gap between the level of ideas and the level of structure and performing like a brand identity versus then changing the
yes.
structures to facilitate those identities or something like that.
I got you. And to the point about just that whole movement around George Floyd is um I think one of the biggest changes, one of the biggest pushes for me was this notion of like being proactive versus reactive. And I think a lot of
Mhm.
people are reactive in the sense that, you know, somebody gets killed by the police and now we're all in the streets.
Mhm.
You ignoring the fact that that's happening on a daily basis, and we're getting up in arms about one person versus these dozens of people that this is happening to, and we build a movement around singular people when this is a structural thing, and we try to get justice for one person, which usually is monetary. They pay out the family in some regard, and it never feels like enough because it's not. It's putting you know, a price tag on this person's life essentially. Um, and we burn ourselves out with that way. You know, I can't, barring the weapons manufacturing part, I can't blame those people for like being out in the streets like mad for a little bit and then
For sure.
going back to their regular lives,
Yeah.
because that mode of activism is not sustainable, you know. But you know, one of the founding factors of Jaded Forum is we're talking about proactive, like we're not even paying attention to what's going on in the world for the most part. We're just building
Mhm.
something that's gonna sustain us once, you know, in our minds this shit starts to collapse around us, you know.
Yeah.
um
Well, maybe as a way to like lead into some of the jaded stuff. And I got to say this for someone in the chat. I'm gonna. I want to give you an anime pulpit before we're over because there were some comments that were like, "Can you speak about anime?" I
oh
promise
yeah,
I'll ask those questions. Everyone, we have time. I want to cover all the bases, but no. But
yeah,
so, I mean, something with to get into maybe the jaded form thing. And if you're watching this right now, at some point, I mean, don't leave this stream, but follow Jaded Forum on all the methods of transmission, including some of the ones I want you to tell us about, which are
yeah,
methods of content transmission that you seem to be developing for this sake, which is crazy,
yeah.
in a cool way. But I think something with online content that exists on spaces like this,
Mhm.
um, and content that exists on things like streamers, you know, I know you know this, a lot of people know this, but it's all basically just there to facilitate, you know, advertising and brand partnerships and integrations and all this sort of stuff. And with, you know, the work that we do at Wisecrack, we're always in this space where we try to be kind of critical of systems and structures in a way that's still accessible, but then have to
Mhm.
go to meetings where we hear things like, be careful you're not too mean towards Disney in a video because it could hurt brand partnerships when they activate the next Marvel franchise or something like that. And that's what so much boils down to. And again, like with everything that involves the internet, it's all really just like data collection, analytics, and figuring out
Yeah.
mechanisms for advertisers to target people. And something that you all seem to have made foundational with Jaded is that you are trying to avoid enmeshing yourself
Yeah.
in those systems. So maybe if you don't mind speaking on that a little bit, or even talking about like why you all started it and why you're aiming to get off these platforms and build something else.
I mean, yeah. So that really just boils down to what I said earlier. Is just like once that entanglement starts to happen, it's hard to remove yourself from just the natural processes of just like being in bed with an entity. It's like you start to sort of deviate away from criticizing though that body, whether it's Disney, whether it's Amazon or
Mm,
or Spotify, even just like all of these people. It's like the second that's where your money is coming from, then there's automatically a muzzle on you.
mhm.
Um and then when we start talking about like structural things within
Honestly, this
Jaded,
Russia
it's like
Ukraine shit might.
once you have corporate money attached to it and they get a say in, you know, your structures, they get if you have a board, they get somebody on the board making all these decisions or nudging you in a certain way, and then the democratic aspect of what we're talking about just starts to dissolve. And for anyone who doesn't know or doesn't want to do the research, Jaded Forum is produced under a not yet formally created production company called 400 Million, which is
Mhm.
a cooperative production company. We all have a vote in everything, in all our processes that happen here, and it's democratic. It's attempting to be non-hierarchical.
Mhm.
um and we have had long so many long conversations about like just like addressing specific, like just the most minute details, the most minute seeds of hierarchy developing, of informal hierarchy developing within the group. And then the
Mhm.
second corporate money starts to come in, all that goes away. You lose your access to all of those processes, and you can try to maintain a relationship while that's still going on, but you can see it start to break down once it creates this sort of impersonal relationship between all of you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me ask two questions then, kind of related.
Mhm.
Was there a inciting incident that started Jaded, something that led you all to doing that? I'm curious about that. And then to do the whole other side of things, now I know you have the show, which, and you can talk about this. I'm a bad person, so I normally just watch it via YouTube. But I
Uh-huh.
know there's a platform that you put the episodes on
Yeah.
that's also a cool, different, outside the Matrix thing or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm just curious, like, how did it get going? Was there an inciting incident or motivation besides what you just talked about? And then long term, where do you want it to go? What's the dream vision for what you all are building?
Okay, so it got started. Actually, Zach Fox introduced me
Mhm.
to Z, who is one of my
Mhm.
co-hosts, and met Connor through him. That's Mosquito Dorito on TikTok and all social media. If you're familiar, he's way more famous than I am. And we started having weekly meetings with a much bigger group of people. It was a bunch of comedians who were all in some way or another, to some degree or another, interested in building a way out of you know entertainment as is and the world as is. And we just kind of met and brainstormed ideas for a long time, and just naturally, you have 2 to 3 hour meetings once a week. People start to get tired,
Hmm.
and by the end of it, I think Z, Connor, and I were the ones who kind of stuck around, and we started brainstorming ideas we could do with the three of us. And it took, I think, at least a year and a half of just developing a friendship or a relationship um before we even officially decided to make to do anything. Um and I think we met during, like, on the tail end of the Floyd uprisings, and
Hmm.
didn't actually get started making the podcast until we recorded our first episode February of last year. Um,
Oh, happy almost 1 year anniversary.
hey, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. Didn't actually drop till April. It was the same day Russia invaded Ukraine. It was very complicated. Also same day my stand-up special dropped. So
Hell
it
yeah.
was a rough day for me. Um, but yeah, so that's how it started, more or less, with a lot of details taken out,
Mhm.
or omitted. Um, our The streaming service you're referring to it's called Resonate. It's also a cooperative. And Z is a board member, and I think we're trying to figure out details with the future of Resonate. So
Mhm.
I think there is a future where we end up putting it on just like normal stream, just the Spotify's podcast
Mhm.
apps and all those things. But, like, the goal there was to build up that platform, um, while we build toward our own separate platforms that we've created ourselves. We have a design agency called 400 Million D&D
Mhm.
that we're working with on a lot of tech projects on the side. We have a
Yeah.
few, and then beyond the tech side, the goal is, just a lot of collective worker ownership, collective land ownership, collective all of these things. There's really just planting the seeds for some type of, like, I mean, communal shit, really.
Yeah.
There's not really a better way to describe it.
And basically, it sounds like you want to build structures, spaces, both digitally, physically, all these things where you don't have to be beholden to,
Yeah.
the traditional content industry and ways of making money.
Yeah. Just creating the space for ourselves to, actually be able to be honest about what's going on.
Hmm.
Um, because I think as everything stands, it's very difficult to do that without running into some type of uh roadblock, you know, whether
Yeah.
it's Netflix censors or it's TV execs that don't think your idea is accessible in whatever way, and accessible meaning uh liberal or aligning
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
whatever political things that they have going on.
Huh. Well, so do you feel, if you had a lot of professional experiences in comedy and your creative work where you feel like you don't have the space to talk about the things you want to talk about, or I guess express like the fullness of your personality and way of thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. There's I want to try and say this in a way that doesn't reveal everybody, because it's the big difficulty is that I don't have any personal beef with anybody in the industry.
Yeah.
I don't have, everybody's just doing their job, and they're doing the best that they can do, which is one of the big difficulties, is that there's nobody you can point to and say fuck you.
Hmm.
It's just like, it makes it so this nebulous, like you're attacking an idea and you can't get to the nucleus of it, and like point out to everyone where the actual problem is. But,
Yeah.
you know there are you bump into a lot of people who are, um I mean, it's a little bit of a manufacturing consent type of
Hmm. Hmm.
situation, because people have a tendency to self-censor, and if you're in that corporate environment, which is, big part of the danger of it, is people start to people start to self-police and say, well, I don't think NBC is going to let us do this, or I don't think Netflix is going to let us say this. And my whole thing is just let them tell us that. But
Mm-hmm.
there are people in rooms where they have the experience, where they know what certain people do and don't like, and they say, if you want this idea to go through, you got to pitch it to this person, but you can't always get to that person, and it's this like mess where you sort of start to dwindle your own creativity. And um and in that case, it's artistic creativity, it's like comedic creativity. But I think the importance of creativity is something that we kind of harp on Jaded, because I think it goes beyond your artistic capabilities, because if you're talking about world building, which is what we're talking about, then there's a creative element to that. If it's going to be truly democratic, there's a creative element where you have to think outside the box and be able to consider all possibilities, whether or not you've seen them work in the past. And I think um, television and film, or at least in the Hollywood sense,
Mm-hmm.
is sort of a microcosm of that limiting of imagination, that whether it's Hollywood or the government or all these entities kind of push on you in explicit and implicit ways, whether it's just them sort of imposing this on themselves and it trickling down, or there's literally the Trilateral Commission report where they talk explicitly about diminishing people's creativity.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's
Well, yeah.
yeah,
It's easy to get conspiratorial, but there's like a long history of the ways in which Hollywood has worked with various structures to try to keep
yeah,
both creativity and then political expressions of that creativity down. Like it's not even hidden
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So yeah,
It's easy to get conspiratorial, and also it's hard to draw that line of like, no, I just read this information is just available.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
a thin line. But no, what you said with the self-censorship makes sense because I think sometimes there's that feeling. And I've had very limited experience of being in rooms where people can make big things happen, but you find
yeah,
yourself in those rooms and it feels like you are experiencing a religious miracle, and this might be your only chance ever to be in this space,
mhm,
and you want to say what that person like. It makes me feel like it's that emotional feeling of being like an awkward 16-year-old and like a cool girl at school talked to me, and I felt like if I
yeah,
said the wrong thing, I would never, you know
yeah.
the
You'll never
touch of a handhold from a pretty girl on the school bus.
right. You'll
And
never get to
it
be
feels
here
like those
again.
stakes are so high. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. So,
yeah,
I think it takes a sort of confidence to be able to like exist in those spaces and maybe go into a room and even think to yourself, like, I might never be in this space again, but fuck it.
yeah,
I'm going to express what I want to express. I'm going to pitch the thing that I actually think is good, and I'm not going to self censor. And I don't. That said, like I don't judge anyone who does that because it's so hard to not. It's easy to say that in the
yeah,
parking lot or on your way to the meeting. It's different to
yeah,
do that in those spaces.
yeah. And it's easier as a comic, because there's a lot of people that come up through that corporate path where they start out as a writer's assistant, and
Mhm,
they're ingrained in the whole thing from day one. Whereas, I got hired because people like my stand up,
mhm,
and then I come in a room and I don't have the sort of like corporate leash.
mhm.
At least I haven't developed it yet, and I
Yeah.
can come in and sort of kind of have an outsider perspective and say like, no, this is what people are actually going to like, or this is what actually makes sense here, and I think if we're going to maintain this like system, I think that's an important element to have, is like for people to actually be able to look at these things for what they are, and tell the truth about them. I don't necessarily think uh I don't think television is necessarily going to last in that way, um nor do I think it should.
Mhm,
um but just if it's gonna last, I feel like somebody should have that capacity to just keep their mind open, and it's funny because you notice that like the best TV in existence is like, I mean, shows like Atlanta or all that whole family tree of like shows that won't admit they were inspired by Louis now. Um,
Yeah, because you can't say that.
but yeah, but like that's just the objective truth. Is that's
Yeah.
where you know that whole dramedy thing came from, the half-hour
Mhm.
drama. Like at the core of those shows, of the genius of those shows, not to take anything away from the people that created them, at the core
Mhm.
is they got the free reign to just do what they wanted. It's like an invisible car is funny, but it's not the first time anybody's done that.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not like an unfathomable concept, you know what I'm saying? It's literally just he said, "What if we made the car invisible?" And somebody said, "Yeah, why not?"
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah, like the stories around Atlanta, and I don't know how much of this is like apocryphal or whatever, but the narrative that one hears is that like season one, rather than being on the studio lot, Donald like rented a house and
yeah,
got a bunch of people in there, many of whom hadn't worked on shows before and weren't from that world, and gave
yeah,
them free reign. And I mean, the coolest part about that is just you too. You take creative people who
yeah,
don't have, like you said, that like spent 10 years as an assistant or whatever, put them
yeah,
in a house, not in a windowless conference room on a studio lot or in an office space, and
yeah,
let them do stuff. Like it's like no wonder that show has done things that no one else would do, because even in like the structures that led to the inception of it and the creative spaces built were just so different. And I
yeah,
find that so cool.
yeah, and I think, maybe that speaks to another aspect of Jaded that like,
Yeah.
the reason it's necessary to have all these systems outside of Hollywood or just the typical, legacy industry is ultimately just to have security and to have the space to say my my housing is taken care of, my food is taken care
Mhm.
of, my all of my basic needs are met, and I don't have to be creative at an industrial pace, you know? And I think that's what's at the root of that story, is,
Yeah.
you put these people in a house and they can be creative at whatever time of day it strikes them. I can get up and say I have an idea, but we're not on the clock right now, so it
Mhm.
doesn't happen that way. Um, and that is, I think that is the piece that a lot of like Hollywood activists are missing. That's
Mhm.
the piece that a lot of comedians are missing, especially the more conservative like Roganites. Is that people are being creative at a pace that is inhuman and that is prioritizing their financial needs as opposed to their human needs.
Mhm.
It's like people and you used to not to like nitpick what you're saying, but you use the phrase
Do it.
creative people, but like all people
Huh.
are creative. That's what separates us from
Yeah.
animals. All people have a creative capacity, whether it's in world building, whether it's in art, whether it's in food, design, just all of these things. Everybody has that capacity in some degree, you know, and
Yeah.
having a situation where society is organized in a rational way, where we say we have 10 billion people on the planet, let's figure out let's organize to meet everybody's needs and then see what they do after that,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, like
And
there's a line, I'm gonna quote it wrong, but one of my favorite lines from the legend Karl Marx is when he talks about like the aim of what he's getting at. I'm trying to think what it says. I'll think of it later and I can post in the comments, everyone, if you care. But Marx is in one of his texts, in like deep in economic analysis, sounding like the angry, old German economist. But he gets to a point where it's like the point of this is so that people can pursue their art, so they can go on walks, so they can
yeah,
go fishing, so they could read books, so they can paint. Like the point of organizing the world this way is so that our humanity can be the thing that flourishes, that our
yeah,
humanity can be the thing that's prioritized. And I think sometimes people even miss that in thinking about politics and things like socialism, communism, all this sort of stuff. The
Yeah.
end goal isn't politics. The end goal is to not have to be political because there's the space to be a human
Yeah.
and
And it's
and express ourselves in that way.
right. And people get this impression because they watch a subliminal episode of Fairly Odd Parents where everything is gray and everybody's a
Mhm.
blob or whatever. That one episode of Girl Meets World. Um and they get these impressions from TV that like it's a system where everybody's equal, which means everybody's the same and everybody, but no, it's first of all, I mean, it's right there in the phrase from each according to his ability to each according to his need.
Mhm.
It's right there acknowledging that people have different needs and different abilities, first of all. And that once those things are implemented and then those needs are met, then we have a system where everybody has the leisure time to go out and express themselves in the ways that they can't under this draconian capitalist system that says well, you can get out of the hood that we designed and put your people in, but you just got to come over here and either play basketball or star in a TV show where we make you look like a I'm going to use the word coon because I can't think, it's early. And it's like I don't understand how people look at the world that's in front of us and say that this is the best that it can be,
Mhm.
you know? And that this is like you see a new terrible TV show every single day, every
Every day.
cycle or whatever. And you never say to yourself, "Oh, I know somebody that's more creative or I'm more creative than this or I could create something better than this." When like government surveillance aside, I feel like TikTok should show us that people on the broad scale are way more creative than we give them credit for. And everybody
Mhm.
has this capacity to some degree. But,
Yeah.
that's a
Well,
system that
yeah. Well, the great
and
thing
I-
about TikTok, like you said, surveillance aside,
yeah.
is that it lowers the price of entry because so often very well-intentioned people will say, well, you just gotta kind of like pull your creative self up by your own bootstraps and make your own thing, shoot
Yeah.
your own thing, do all this stuff, sometimes not acknowledging all of the money, resources, time, equipment, ability, connections that go into even getting there. And I do think that is the biggest bright side of
Yeah.
social media apps and things like TikTok and Twitter. Like they give people an opportunity to make stuff. But
Yeah.
I think the point you make as well about, oh, go ahead.
Well, I guess I was gonna preface that or
Yeah.
post face that by saying the
Mhm.
TikTok works the same way, where it's responding to a system that's been created by
Mhm.
what it came out of. And it sort of acts as this like there's there the barrier of entry is so high for traditional entertainment. Look at this. You can finally go through this medium where they are collecting your data. They're using you to sell all these advertisements and they will throttle your performance if you
Mhm.
say the things that don't align with their mission statement, you know? And so and that's to the point of us creating our own platforms is you can either chase a different algorithm every few years for the rest of your life,
Mhm.
and let that guide your creativity, or you can look to something different and be creative.
Yeah. Well, just like an anecdote with TikTok, I've had to have been in meetings because this is all everyone cares about in like the advertising and content world now is TikTok. And now it's to the point where it's so cheap to buy views on TikTok.
Yeah.
Everyone just games the system. So like if if Mountain Dew came to like our parent company or something like that and was like, we want to pay you this much money, we have to guarantee this many views, the company's just like, great, we'll buy them. I mean, don't say that to the person, but and
Yeah.
it just becomes this shell game of nothingness where
Yeah.
the views and the metrics are just bought and manufactured and not real so that none of it means anything anymore. And every platform kind of gets like that until that train runs out of gas and then
Yeah.
something else picks it up and the thing collapses. And that's just, it's an unsustainable way to run any type of creative economy. But to back up a little bit, I mean, you made this point about imagining a better world or a different way of doing things. And yeah, and this kind of connects with your point as well, where you rightfully corrected me to say that everyone is creative because you're totally right.
Yeah.
Um, like if you I've probably the most fun place I ever lived was a medium-sized town in England with no connections to any entertainment industry, where people had solid benefits and healthcare, good time off work, at least some social housing. And it was the most creative place I've lived in my life because everyone had time to do stuff,
Yeah.
and like everyone I knew did something. And there was variety shows and comedy shows and experimental music and a big graffiti scene and a clown scene, like everything, because people had time. And everyone you met, and I briefly lived in Baltimore for a bit. And I would say Baltimore is the closest place I've ever lived in America that had any of this, all of Baltimore's problems aside.
Yeah.
Like everyone I knew when I lived in Baltimore did something. And often it was weird. Like I knew people there that did a yearly, what was it, a water ballet where they did synchronized swimming in this, and that you worked with musicians and did this crazy show. And all these people had jobs or other lives, but they had the space in their lives to do weird and cool shit, and
Yeah.
people supported it. And people were, at least people I knew in that scene, were just like happy. They were a little more interesting.
Yeah.
They had like a life about them because they had that space to be creative people and have that creativity be completely disconnected from economic or professional gain,
Yeah.
which is
And
a
it,
magical thing.
yeah, I mean, it's that feeling that you have control over the world around you, sense,
Hmm.
even if it's just expressing yourself artistically, it's like you can actually manipulate things in a way that makes sense to you and that like you get the results that you wanted to get out of it, you know? And like
Yeah.
I think about stand-up comedy, for example. Um, I think about this a lot and I don't really know how to what my feelings are around it because I do love comedy, but ultimately it is a art form that's born out of material conditions. It's literally
Hmm.
it exists because vaudeville was too expensive, you know? And it's like it's literally just like the production value goes down because economic conditions and we can afford a microphone and if you want to get up there and talk and entertain people that way, then we can that's a good cheap way to keep people in the seats. And it's hard to sort of reconcile like possibility that that an art form that I love might not exist without these fucked up material conditions. You know what I'm saying? And I think so much about like what it would be if now that we have it, maybe if these conditions change and the world opens up a little bit, what it could become,
Hmm.
you know?
Well, so this kind of gets into, and are you cool if I ask you a couple more questions? I know I don't
Oh
want to
no,
keep you too long.
I got
All
time,
right,
man.
cool. Just want to respect your time. And everyone in the chat, thank you for hanging. I've tried to keep up, but then I stopped trying to keep up because I'm trying to be engaged in the conversation. So don't be mad at me. But I did notice one question from Ian in the chat
Uh-huh.
who asked you, and I think it's kind of relates to what you're talking about with comedy stuff. Like, what's the end goal? What's the best version of comedy as you see it? And I guess I wonder, like, both for you and on a large scale, like, what do you see as maybe your end goal, your sort of like what you would like to see happen with yourself and your work creatively, and then maybe what is the best version of that? And you've kind of gotten at this in different ways, but maybe to
Yeah.
ask that is just like one succinct question.
I think just because of the nature of my politics, I won't try to say like I guess a definitive best
Yeah.
version of it because, I've that's people that when people demand that of you, it's just trying to poke. I'm not saying you're doing this, but it's an
Yeah.
attempt to like poke holes in something that's attempting to be democratic and respect
Hmm.
people's creativity and whatnot. But I mean, just like a preliminary version of that is just people own the means to get their own material out into the world, and I think there's not a lot of credence paid to that on the digital side. We talk about owning the means of production, and it's people are thinking of factories and shit like that.
Hmm.
When one of the big problems that I have with uh Marxism or just broader
Hmm.
leftism and communism is this focus on industrial production and like
Hmm.
owning like people just owning without a further critique, just owning
Hmm.
the same factories that are fucking up the environment and all these things. And like if workers own that and it's still producing at the same capacity, we still got the same problems. Um, but point being, there's not a lot of credence to that paid to that outside in other realms, whether it's agricultural work or in my case digital work. And I think we kind of touch on it with critiques of Spotify and all these streaming services that don't pay out enough per stream. But I think in an ideal world, artists would own those platforms and be able to collectively decide how much of those resources are being put back into their pockets and how much is being put into these broader projects that we're talking about building. We would own, venues, performance spaces, all of these things. Like, I think one of the biggest challenges for me personally is reckoning with this, like, there's a unionization movement that's going on right now that I, coming from a space where I've been unemployed for too long to like tell people what to do. Like, but like I look at that and see the limitations of it when people are sort of organizing within, sort of under the corporate umbrella that they're organizing against. So you got the Amazon union, you got the Starbucks union, where these unions are tied directly to the corporations that are that they're organizing against, and so they have a vested interest in a way in keeping those organizations alive. Because if the company dies, your union dies. That's why it's so easy for Starbucks to shut down a store immediately after it gets unionized. And now what do you have? And so
Yeah. Well, it's that movement to like make things as good as possible within the systems of power that exist.
Exactly.
And I think for sometimes I guess I empathize with the idea that people do feel so powerless.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
almost but that's
And
like the bummer, right? That feeling in so many spaces, like we all just want to do the best we can do because we're just
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
what
yeah.
else is possible? Which is so depressing that we've had that cultural mood. But I don't blame people for feeling that.
Yeah, and I mean, and yeah, obviously, like, people are doing their best, and like, you have to also consider the material conditions they're working under. Not everybody can just go off and like build a new corporation or start a company or whatever. But it's just a matter of, thinking outside of that, or like, organizing with the long-term goal of doing those things. I think a lot of people sort of uh a lot of people behave as though, and this is another problem in comedy, a lot of people behave and operate as though the things that they're saying can't actually be enacted in the world. And so a lot of people have these exact same ideas that I have, but they're like, well, no, we got to be pragmatic about it. We got to be realistic. But at a certain point, we're fucked regardless of what we do. So why not do the quote
Yeah.
extreme thing that you think? And I
And
think
this is what
part of
people
that,
forget sometimes. Yeah. Political will is real. And like stuff
yeah,
happens because people, and this sounds like I'm doing magic fairy shit, but it's not. Like if
yeah,
enough people collectively decide to do a thing, they can do the thing.
yeah,
It's kind of as simple as that. And it can be, doesn't mean it's easy,
yeah,
but I think that we really lower the ceiling on what political and collective will is capable of doing. And you just got to look
yeah,
at history to see that there are instances where groups of human beings have fundamentally changed the way that society worked in different
yeah,
eras. Again, not
yeah,
easy. These are exceptional moments,
yeah,
but they do and can happen.
yeah. And I think a big part of that is like, and maybe this is going to be controversial to some people, I don't know,
Oh shit.
but I think that's part of what perpetuates these very, I mean, it's very obvious on the right where people say all these fucked up fascist, crypto fascist things, and then the people that have the means to run with those things take it and they do. And I think on the other end of the spectrum, you have a lot of people on the quote unquote left who have all these very short-sighted ideas of eat the rich or kill landlords or whatever. And they say it because they don't feel like they have the means to do it. But somebody has the means to do those things. And you've seen in the around the world, people have had the means to do those things. And it perpetuates very bad myopic notions of what is workers' liberation. And two, it perpetuates just like the reality that people view that as broad support for what ultimately is an authoritarian regime, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't I mean I don't even know how to what else to say on that. It's just
Yeah, no,
yeah,
but I do like get what you're saying there, and broadly agree with much of that. And I do think like, yeah, I think the kind of sloganification of vaguely left and progressive ideas and the
yeah,
detachment of those things from, I guess, A, thinking about how to do stuff, and then B, thinking about the structures that keep those things in power. Like we're working on a video at Wisecrack about landlords,
mhm,
and I think it'll piss everyone off, or people on both extremes, because I think the easy thing to do is just to kill all the landlords. Landlords are all objectively bad, yada yada.
yeah,
The harder thing is to look at, like, why do those structures exist? Why is housing a commodity in the first place?
right.
What is the larger way to rethink the system other than just like build a guillotine, kill the landlords, go from
Exactly.
there? And then how do we just not reduplicate the process of
Yeah.
commodified private home ownership in our response to the problem of housing?
Yeah, I mean, that's and that dynamic is replicated in the arts to such a I mean,
Hmm.
if you're watching what's going on, it's like it's so it's so predictable. It's we kill the landlord and then we become the landlord. You know, it's that
Yeah, yeah.
it like that's why every rapper breaks off from their the label they're under and starts their own label where they get to be the boss. It's not, you know, there aren't a lot of rap cooperatives that I know of, you know.
Hmm.
It's I mean, it's the problem I have with like support black business as a narrative because they're all structured the same as white businesses. You know, the these people aren't talking about supporting black cooperative uh business ownership, land ownership, all of these things. They're talking about supporting hierarchical black businesses that are
Hmm.
oppressing way more black people than they're actually building up, you know?
Hmm.
And and that's the mentality in everything. It's just supplant the systems of power so that these very I'm going to use the word again, very myopically, like these people at the bottom get
Hmm.
pushed to the top. But we got to start talking about humanizing everyone and accepting that while you have these gripes throughout history that are well founded, the way to achieve long-term liberation is to liberate everybody, and that's to include, and I mean that's including the people that are oppressing you, unfortunately,
Yeah.
as much as you don't want to
Well,
admit it. That's Paulo
yeah.
Freire said.
Well, no, for sure, and even like Marx agrees with that. The point is to restore humanity to everyone, and like when we think
Yeah.
about like alienation, you know, we focus on sort of the way in which Marx talk about the way in which the worker is alienated from the product, which alienates them from the means of production, from a fellow humanity. But on the flip side, like the the owner is also alienated from their humanity. Or we look at like our modern economic structure, the person that makes our phone in China is alienated from that process of consumption, but then we're alienated from the mechanisms that make the stuff that we use. So I think
Yeah.
it's important to recognize it goes both ways, and not just like, again, guillotine the people I don't like
Yeah.
to fix things.
Exactly.
Well, here I'll finally wind down. I could talk to you about this stuff for days. Let's do a
Yeah.
couple quick hits before we leave, because in the
Mhm.
chat, I promise this. People might know this, probably know this, and the number of things you've done. You also have made anime videos.
Uh-huh.
And wait, have you written anime?
No. 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 No.
Or
No. No.
okay.
No.
So do you? Let me ask this: do you have any anime takes you want to get off? Do you plan to keep doing that? Like, is that something that is there any overlap in sort of the interest in anime and other stuff you've done, or is that just the thing where you like anime, you like talking about stuff, and you were making anime videos for a while because it was fun?
It's a little of both. I don't see myself becoming a long-term anime influencer or anything like that, but I still have takes to get off, and
Yeah.
I've been formulating a video. It's one of those projects that like it's becoming a dissertation where
Mhm.
I started with a nugget of a thread and it's taken me in all these other directions. But I've been working on, I guess, like 2 years now, research piece about just like
Oh shit.
Miyazaki's politics.
Uh-huh.
I think because I think a lot of people have sort of touched on it and given very um short-sighted versions of what they think it
Mhm.
is, but like I mean ultimately I think him as a person may not reflect this, but I think his work reflects a social ecologist outlook, you know.
Mhm.
Um if you look at Princess Mononoke, it's examining humanity's role uh in opposition to nature and potentially,
Mhm.
potential role in conjunction with it. And it's also examining the social relations that contribute to that role. You know what I'm saying? And it examines all sorts of things like there's a scene where it's straight up uh I think Lady Eboshi talks about, I mean, not explicitly, obviously, but you can draw out of it a commentary on like the labor theory of property, where she's trying to settle this mountain that the apes already live on, but because they're not working the land, that she has an entitlement to it as a human. There's all these little threads. I mean, like Spirited Away uh is clearly that narrative, and it's been touched on
Yeah.
in video essays before, but like seeing this integration of humanity and the spiritual world and the sort of the world of nature and all these things as maybe as a foil to Princess Mononoke or Nausicaa, where they're so at odds with each other.
Mhm.
You know, you finally get to a point where in Spirited Away they're embracing the spirit world is embracing human technology and vice versa, and you see like how he sort of progressed in his views over time, sort of evolving from, if you read the Nausicaa manga, evolving from an almost eco-fascist outlook to now
Mhm.
like we can embrace technology and humanity is not a parasite on the world, but
Mhm.
it's just the social organization that's putting us at odds with nature. It's so deep, and like
That sounds so good.
if
I'll tell you whenever you do get that up, our audience is going to be very hype on that. All of that is very in the Q zone
yeah.
of our audience and
Yeah.
stuff. So that sounds
Yeah, but you
very,
you
very
can
good.
see why it's
But that is a
taken a long
dissertation. Like you could
yeah.
literally write a book on that. So
Oh yeah.
maybe you gotta break it up into pieces.
I think so,
But
yeah.
well, how about this? And seriously, thank you so much for taking all this time. This is really
Of
great.
course.
What can people do most immediately to check out what you're doing, support what you're doing? What are the best action steps if people A, just want to know more about you and your work, and then B, support the stuff that you're working on?
I mean, you can I don't even want to tell people to watch my special. It's on Comedy Central if you want. My name is very
How about this?
Googleable.
It's really
Um,
good, everyone. It's genuinely a very good special. You should watch it. So I'm not gonna make you don't have to say it.
thank,
It's
thank you.
on this website that you're on right now, everyone. So you could just watch it. The second this is over,
Yeah,
it'll take you 2 seconds.
yeah, it's right
It's
there.
yeah.
Um,
So
but on the more
yeah.
immediate tip, Jaded Forum is available. You can watch that. There's 23 episodes out right now. We just
Mhm.
shot our 24th yesterday. We're back for 2023. And you can support us financially on opencollective.com. We're not on Patreon. Maybe I don't know if one day we'll make that leap. I highly doubt it.
I hope you
But
don't have to. For your sake, I hope you don't have to.
me too. Yeah, so opencollective.com/jaded
Yeah.
forum. We got
And I'll say if anyone has never checked out a Jaded Form episode, I mean, I've liked all of them that I watched, but if one is jumping into that world, every time Zach Fox is on is so
yeah,
funny and chaotic and good. And
yeah,
I mean, you guys do this in general, which I love, but especially on the Zach Fox episodes, the time at which it'll bounce from very funny and absurd to someone just saying one of the most thoughtful things you've heard in a while is the best type of confusing conversational content, and I like it so much.
Yeah.
So
It's
I don't know.
whiplash, man.
Yes. I mean, so I would just recommend maybe if someone doesn't know where to dive in, personally, especially the Zach Spock episodes are so good.
Yeah. If you want to
Yeah.
get a sense of everything that we've ever talked about on the show, definitely that episode 23, but episode 22 I think sums it up very broadly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you're doing something really cool, and it just speaks to stuff that I don't know. I think for a lot of people, getting to see what you guys talk about, it's that feeling of like, yeah, like I've been thinking this, I've been feeling this. I didn't know if everyone else was as well. And there's an honesty and an openness to it that I think in creative fields, but in any type of field where people are thinking about their relationship to like themselves, their labor, their creativity, and the way that we exist communally. It's just cool that you all are taking the big swings and are willing to talk about that. Not that I wouldn't just, love another podcast where you guys sit around as comedians and like read reviews of fast food restaurants or something. That's fun too, but we're doing something great. So thank you for putting that into the world. Yeah. And definitely, if you ever want to come back, please do. And if you ever, again, we should figure out a way to do something involving some of these anime takes that we could give you some money and collaborate in a way to put that on our channel or do something, because we would love that.
Yeah, I would love to.
Awesome.
Gotta talk about it.
Well, Yedoye, thank you so much again for coming through. Really appreciate it. Yep. And once it's over, I'm going to maim myself for the thumbnail mistake we made earlier. I'll never forget. That is my 9/11. So awesome. Well, have a good one, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Have a good one.
Awesome, everyone. Again, if you are here, if you're hanging out, thank you for hanging out. But follow Jaded Forum on YouTube. Follow Yedoye on all the social media stuff. Really good Twitter follow, among other things. And I think he has a Twitter thread. I'm going to try to find what day it is. A Twitter thread from January 7th that gets into a lot of the stuff we talked about today. So definitely check that out if you haven't. And definitely check out Jaded Forum. Like I said before, all the episodes of Zach Fox are great. So good. I mean, they're all good, but those are really great. Henry, is there crazy noise coming in through my mic? Can people hear that?
Yeah, I'm getting some fuzz from
I'm going to move it. Guys, sorry. Someone outside my window decided now is construction time. Oh. It's like you think in Los Angeles, people could respect the necessity to make content. And guys, sorry. Hopefully everyone's cool. I know we went for a while there, but it was just too much fun to not. And hopefully we can get Yedoye back sometime, because that was really fun. Henry, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. That was a wonderful listen. I could hear the conversation keep going there. Just as far as
could have done that for 4 hours.
Yeah, systems and the icons they make people into. It's
awesome. And everyone in the chat, thank you for being cool. I know that we do a lot of back and forth, but I really wanted to focus on that conversation, and thank you for letting me do that. So it feels like a weird transition, friends, but we're going to talk about the movie M3gan in a second. So in the meantime, as we kind of transition, again, you know what to follow and what to look into. Thank you for liking the stream. Oh, wait, were there two lords of the chat? I know we got going. Was it Mellow Jello and Joshua who are lords of the chat right now? Please remind me, friends, who you are, because I want to respect the lords of the chat and all that you do for the world. Again, you know all the stuff. You know that there's a Patreon. You know that you can be a member to this channel. You know that you can watch our videos. You know that there's a Discord server that you access, whether you're a member to YouTube or you're on Patreon. You know that if you join Patreon, it supports us directly and financially. I noted that someone commented on someone made the comment that all of our ads now are just for the stream. A, because we love the stream. B, because I like to go behind the crack with you all and stuff. Here's a fun thing. Q1 of this year, advertising industry falling apart. Not a lot of stuff coming through, which means we get to do ads for that. But listen, I wanted to talk about the movie M3gan, if that's okay. I guess are you good to change the thumbnail on that, Henry?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get on that.
Awesome. Friends, I want to talk about M3gan. I know it's a huge jump from this. I think there is a relation, and if I can thread the needle, I'll be really, really proud of myself for my ability to do that. I might not be able to thread that needle, but I'm going to try to thread that needle. Let me know in the chat if you've seen the movie M3gan as well. It's about robots. Oh, it was Jacob. Sorry. So it wasn't Josh. Jacob's Lord of the Chat. Sorry about that. Now I know you're Lord of the Chat. Also, let me know how everyone's doing. I haven't got to participate in the chat as much as normal, so I missed you all. So hopefully everyone's doing good. But yeah, and I think with everything we just talked about on there too, I know that we were talking a lot about the specifics of, the comedy industry and the things that Yedoye and everyone at Jaded and his friends are working on. A lot of that is stuff that I think about a lot because, and I know I always talk about this with you all, but sometimes it really kills me how so much of what we do is tied to, the algorithmic data on this website, how much it's tied into sponsors, how much it's tied into making brands happy. And it is what it is. And it's the world that we live in. And I'm so glad that we get to make stuff. And I'm so glad we get to commune in this way. But, always a hard balance. And this is me just being honest. This is me having a Burns expression corner. It's one of those things where it feels good sometimes just to acknowledge that things are kind of confusing and screwed up, even if I don't know how to fix them right now. Yeah, but thank you for giving us the space to talk about that sort of stuff. It means a lot. But we're going to talk about M3gan for a bit because it's a movie that came out. We like to talk about movies. Should we maybe, is a good transitionary thing, Henry? Maybe we'll pull up the trailer for it.
Yeah, let me pull up the watch.
You want to do it? Yeah. Here, I think I can just find the trailer within Watch Together, right? Let's see if this will work. There we go. M3gan official trailer, or we could watch the German one. Okay, guys. Let's demonetize the stream by doing that. Bob Loblong says read Sellers by Jay Sakai. Okay, that's fun. Oh yeah, and like the stream if you don't mind. Why not? Why not, friends? Luis Rodriguez says, I'm feeling so much better after the conversation as a scientist and an academic. I see so many parallels with the art world. No, that's totally true. Luis, that's what I was, and I talked about that at the beginning of the conversation. But in academia, it's like you work so hard to do a thing that you're passionate about that doesn't feel like you're doing it because the necessity to make money or whatever. And then you get jobs, and you start working in these industries like in academia and research where you feel like it's a blessing just to get a job. It's so competitive. You work so hard. You get these jobs and you don't really get paid very well. Not a lot of great opportunities, but the vibe is sort of basically eat the slop and take it because someone else will take your job as well. Vox said, shout out to Lux and Burns for the Patreon podcast last week. Thank you so much for checking that out. Again, Patreon podcast is out. Lux and I just talked for a while. It was fun, even though Lux left a few times. But yeah, so just to that question as well. And I think for a lot of industries, we feel like that. Okay, we're going to watch. John says nonprofits do the same things. Yeah, I mean, I think the commonality, right, with nonprofit work. Or should we do official trailer too? I'll do the official one, I guess. But yeah, John Ford brings up nonprofit work. There's so many industries where it seems like by taking a thing that matters, like in the nonprofit world, I want to make the world better. I want to help people. I want to be an agent of change. In academia, I want to think. I want to research. In education, I want to teach. I want to help people. In entertainment, often I want to create art. I want to write. I want to perform. I want to make the world interesting. All of these things then pull, those in charge are able to pull on that passion to kind of suck the life out of them. It sucks. Also, I realize I'm an idiot because the only things besides working retail, I've only ever worked in nonprofits, education, and media. Horrible. I'm an idiot, guys. I'm getting into private finance. Okay, let's watch this M3gan trailer and just talk about it. It was a shockingly fun movie that I think gets at some interesting ideas. We'll talk about it for a little bit. Okay.
Katie, you lost your parents.
Was the audio on for this? Or maybe I just don't hear it. Hold on. Oh, I don't have my computer audio going through my. This should work now. Let's see.
Katie,
there we
you
go.
lost your parents. Welcome home. You're my niece.
I'm okay. So this is people hate when I stop videos, but let me just say this. Julia, I don't think it's too scary to watch alone, but maybe. Movie starts off hot with a kid's parents dying.
I'm gonna do everything I can to make this place feel like home.
Just wish I could see them again.
I'm not equipped to handle this. I don't even take care of my own plants. I have this project at work. Do you want to see?
Yes.
Also, Allison William is just the queen of playing slightly sociopathic white girls in horror movies.
Ever since I was little, I dreamed of this perfect toy that would protect a kid from ever feeling lonely or sad. This is Megan.
Hi, Megan. I'm Katie. It's nice to meet you, Katie. Do you want to hang out?
So scary. So scary.
Okay.
Megan, your goal is to protect Katie from.
Also, there's an actor, I think like a young woman from New Zealand who played the robot in the movie, who's so good in terms of like movements and actualizing that thing.
Both physical and emotional.
Is that a doll?
Model 3 generative android. Megan for short.
I can't believe you made this. I love it.
Wanna hang out, yeah, sounds like fun.
Great job.
It's nice to have a friend.
It's honestly like she's part of the family now.
They could be building emotional connections that are too hard to untangle.
So that's the child therapist in the movie. Once again, I'm not going to, this is just in the trailer. This isn't spoiling anything for you. We have this child therapist who's sort of the one character who steps in occasionally and is basically just like, this is fucking crazy. What you're doing is fucking crazy. You're going to ruin this child's mind. And she's right.
She's the happiest she's been since her parents died. Eat the toppings.
Happiest she's been since her parents died. The glibness with which they talk
Katie.
about it.
Research shows if you force a child to eat vegetables, they'll be less likely to choose those foods as adults.
Is that so?
Yes, experts say.
Megan, turn off.
I thought we were having a conversation.
Does she talk? Make her say something.
This guy sucks. He's the worst character in the movie. And I'm going to say a thing. I said this on Twitter as well. I'll say it here. And I hope this isn't a spoiler. If you saw the movie, did you or did you not think at some point this young man was going to try to have sex with the doll? Wait, Henry, you saw the movie, right?
Yes and yes.
Yes, it looks like, and I was in the theater looking around like, is everyone else seeing what I'm seeing? It's crazy. Monkey Jeebus said it's really about parenting. Yes, we'll talk about this. We'll do a little session talking about the movie, but it's definitely about parenting.
Something.
Stop! Megan! You should probably run. Megan, did you push Brandon onto the road? I won't let anything harm you.
And this is the thing too, in the movie, like John saw the movie and he's married to the doll now. Monkey Jeebus says, yeah, he mounted her. Kid is a psycho, of course. There's a reading of this movie where the real villain is the little girl Katie. We could talk about it. I think that's a valid read.
Megan, turn off.
Recalibrating response model.
Aki Cat 75 said they spoil almost the entire movie in this trailer. Now having seen the movie, yes, this trailer is the entire movie.
Megan! What's wrong with you? Don't worry, Katie. I won't let anything harm you. Ever again.
It's nice to have a friend.
So we basically just watched the movie together. Now that I'm thinking about this, was there anything they didn't show in that trailer that's an important part of the movie?
Yes.
Yeah, so there you go, everyone. But I do not think this is a movie that was naturally natural. That's what I'm looking to say. Not the deepest movie in the world, but it gets at some interesting ideas. Yeah, am I making that up, Henry?
No, yeah. Like it's flat characters, it's killer doll camp, but it's also like it's one of those really good like just like entries into it's like entry level like film semiotics. Like you can show it to somebody and like identify the themes and point out like kind of like what, you know, innuendo it's trying to make in a very obvious way. But it's really fun in that respect.
Yeah. So there's a world where Wisecrack, like a year or two ago, maybe would have made a video about this movie. Now we're kind of, you all know this, we're shying away from media stuff because it hasn't been doing as well. But what I would say, my pitch would be, if we were going to do a Wisecrack video on it, would be that it's kind of a meditation on how our reliance and belief in technology has kind of made us into idiots. Or if it hasn't made us into idiots, what we've inadvertently done is prioritized the logic of technology over a logic centered in humanity. And in thinking about this, it makes me think about the German critical theorist Herbert Marcuse from the Frankfurt School. And he had this notion of technological rationality. And to back up a little bit, in the critical theory world, when they think about technology, I'll be a little reductive here, but you all can look this up because you're all very smart. There's this idea that technology, and this goes all the way back to Marx, can be a good thing. And it can be a good thing when it sort of frees up our labor capacity and enables our freedom. So when technology helps us to be more human, technology is good. When technology enables us to better, what's the word I'm looking for, actualize our human capacity, it's good. And this actually is kind of like what Yedoye and I were just talking about in terms of having the freedom to create and be human. So critical theorists, Frankfurt School guys, think this is a good thing. However, what can happen on the other side is that technological rationality takes over our thinking. So rather than technology being about the opening up of the capacity to be more human, humans start thinking about ourselves in terms of technological rationality. Where it matters is innovation, progress, all these sorts of things, where efficiency matters more than anything else. And there's a part in the film when the Allison Williams character, Gemma, is pitching the doll. And the main pitch of M3gan in the movie as a product is, here's a thing a parent can have that will basically raise their kid for them so that they can do what really matters. And they do a really good cut where when Allison Williams' character says, so you can focus on what really matters. And it's just like her alone on a laptop. And I thought that was a really good way of showing how like the end goal of technology is to create more space for us to be alone on our laptops. And when we think about what technology has done in our lives recently, the more and more things get automated. It's like the more and more time we can spend on our laptops or our phones or something like that. Letter W in the chat said, our lives have so much pain and so little joy. We alienate ourselves further by programming comfort into our tech. Then it goes haywire with our own errors. Cass B says it also speaks to how we forget we are emotional first, logical second. The robots only get the logic. And then we go, why did they turn on us? Yeah. Matthew Rotaire says Eli Whitney thought his invention would help end the need for slavery. Jesus. I don't know a lot about Eli Whitney, but I mean, like, I could see where that logic would make sense, but that's what keeps happening with technology. And I think the movie gets at that question in a really interesting way, that distinction between, does technology serve the purpose of enabling human freedom, or does technology dominate human rationality and kind of extinguish the prioritization of that thing? Vox makes the good point. Watching your kids so you can do what really matters. Watching Wisecrack videos. Yeah. I'm sure if you're here, you've liked the stream already, but to make the algorithmic logic happy, you can like the stream if you want. I'll say a version of this though. I'm going to riff a little bit. Hopefully I'm allowed to riff. I'm going to riff on how this relates to the website we're on now. It's called YouTube. But it almost seems like what has even happened on YouTube and in a lot of digital spaces is that rather than using them to do interesting human things, whether they're thoughtful or funny or weird, creative, we've taken on the logic of those platforms themselves, which then affects what we do. I am working on writing a script for us right now about why YouTube and digital space in general has gotten kind of bad. But I think it's because now people make stuff not for people. They make stuff for the algorithm. Like when I ask you all to like the stream, I'm not really asking you to like it to affirm to me and Henry that you like the stream. I think we get that from your engagement in the comments, from your thoughtful questions, comments, critiques. When we ask you to like the stream, we're asking you to please the algorithm so that what we're doing can be pleasing to a non-human set of automated processes, right? And when we think about thumbnails and titles for videos, we're not really thinking about what speaks to a thoughtful human being in a direct way. We have to think, what does the algorithm brain want? So even if we're thinking about what thumbnail do you want to see, we're thinking of what does your brain, having been, my brain too, having been so infected by the algorithmic logic of modern technology, what does that brain want to see? And I think that that's an extension of the logic we get in the movie M3gan. Grandma's good boy in the chat said, like and subscribe to this video so you can do what matters, which is liking and subscribing to this video. Yeah. John Ford said, like not making content you love anymore because parent company does not like its numbers. I mean, some of that, right? Some of that. Let's see. Yeah, and John points out the fictional numbers. Yeah. Caspi says this is the automation conversation too. Technology could be freeing us up to explore the human condition so we don't waste our time doing mundane work. AkiCat75 says, wish everyone would get to experience the YouTube when people made videos just for fun. Yeah, there was something fun about that version of the internet, but I don't know. Did I just lose my mind, Henry? Feel free to bring me back to earth if I
No,
just...
what you're speaking of also brings to mind this concept. I think it's in economics called Jevons paradox, where you know, mathematically, it's like we make an innovation that increases efficiency to meet consumption demand. Consumption demand goes down. But what happens in the paradox is there's an increase in efficiency and consumption goes up. So you're just stuck in the same place. You're not mending everything. And yeah, you get into algorithmic thinking and you just make new algorithmic holes to be fed. You're not solving prior attention economy problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Let's see. Yeah, John says there's still people who make videos for fun, but the algorithm makes them unicorn difficult to find. And to be clear too, when I describe the algorithmic thinking we use, we're not really algorithmic in the content itself, but it's more like in things like titles and thumbnails, in stuff like asking y'all to like the stream. You know, like Henry and I, when we plan these streams, we're not thinking, what is the algorithm? Like we didn't think today, oh, bringing on a really funny and smart comedian and creator of things to talk about how fucked up the content world is. Ooh, YouTube's going to love that. I mean, if anything, YouTube probably wouldn't like that, but that's something that we wanted to do. And even talking about M3gan, it's a new movie, but something we kind of like wanted to talk about a little bit. But yeah. And maybe to get back to M3gan in that sense, I mean, I will say this too, to talk about M3gan again. I would recommend it. Henry, do you recommend this as something that if someone has the time and resources, it's fun to see in the theater?
It was a fun theater movie. I enjoyed it. I'm curious about the reading of the girl as the villain, because getting back to Jevons paradox and the whole, you know, not solving, you know, from the foundation what the issue is, like, yeah, getting your kid a doll as a surrogate parent is not a solution.
Someone called M3gan hot in the chat. I don't know why I find that so funny. It's so dark, but I guess it's a robot. So just that's one read of that movie.
I honestly was expecting the movie to go darker with the whole like, hey, we can mass produce and sell these things to people.
Yeah. Monkey Jeebus says there's an R-rated cut with more gore. Not a very gory film. But yeah, and I definitely think it's one that it's a movie that I'd rather see in a theater with people than at home alone on my laptop. But yeah, so I guess in the movie, right then, to get back to analyzing the film, you know, innovation in economics, and I think, you know, technological rationality, to go back to that Herbert Marcuse stuff, is what dominates Aunt Gemma's thinking, the character played by Allison Williams, such that in the movie, this woman is literally prioritizing the development of a robot to be sold on the market over the healing of her niece, whose parents both just died, which is wild. And I think the message of the movie, one way to read the message of the movie, or one thing to project onto the movie to act as if it has a message other than just being a fun, weird movie, is that it kind of reminds us that if technology isn't something whose primary goal is to achieve human ends, leaving us the space to pursue things like art and creativity and things we like, again, to harken back to the conversation we had with in the first half of the stream with Yedoye, it can instead make our humanity in service of technology, right? So it's either technology serves humanity or humanity ends up serving technology. You know, it's like the Matrix. Ever heard of it? And I think that question, that paradox, that tension that the movie leaves us with is pretty good. It is pretty good. Vox points out that there's a M3gan in real life. People would just use it as a sex bot. Yeah, I think everyone would just use, I think as Jordan said, the Theranos type beat. Yeah. I looked at Rodrigo's comment, and this is great because I almost said this earlier, the Keynes thing, but I forgot the exact quote. Although when I first looked at it, I thought you were saying Kanye predicted, and I was like, oh, this is going to be good. But Rodrigo says, Keynes predicted in the 1930s that we would have 15-hour work weeks by the 21st century due to technological advances. Ironically, technology advanced even further than you could have thought, and we work more. So there you go there you go with that one. Yeah, but no, and I think that, again, if we were to do a full Wisecrack video on M3gan, I think it would then broaden out to talk about the way in which in the movie we see this via the crazy murdery robot, but in life we see it in a lot more like innocuous ways that we don't often think about. And that's kind of the real evil. I will say the final scene of the movie, which I will not spoil, but I will say it, I read it as hinting that, you know, it's not the murdery doll we really have to worry about. It's kind of technology as such. I guess, is that a fair reading of that? Again, without spoiling it, I guess, the last little scene?
Definitely. One of the scenes the trailer didn't spoil, and I'm not going to spoil here, does deal, too, with instead of the killer doll doing something gory or murderous, it's far more emotionally exploitative, and I really loved it.
Yes. 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 So, yeah, it's a fun one to check out if you want to think about this stuff. We do have, I don't think it's on the page, but we have a TikTok on it and maybe a YouTube short. I have not looked at the Wisecrack TikTok today, so I don't know if we put it up yet. But yeah, but we are. I will say that is an announcement type thing. We're gonna start putting a lot more stuff on TikTok and on Shorts. I said it at the beginning of the stream as well, but I did one this week on M3gan. Recorded one yesterday that's kind of fun on Prince Harry and Meghan and the royals who have taken over America, in which I basically try to argue that all they're doing is trading one type of royalty for another, the sort of inbred hierarchical royalty of monarchy for the selling one's soul as a commodity royalty of Kardashian-esque American culture. So that'll be up, and you can check that out if you want. Julia said, my brother is in computer science and is legit scared of AI because he understands it. I do not understand it, so I am not scared. Yeah, that's why sometimes I don't want to know anything about AI, and I don't know a ton about it. Do you like understand AI, Henry?
I as a hobby, I'm into, science fiction and computer stuff. I don't believe it's real in the sense that there's like a sentient self-awareness. I think it's kind of a lie we tell ourselves as far as, I made a really smart thing, and the biggest danger is that I made a thing that's too smart. I think there's a bit of that kind of magical thinking that goes into AI, even with the most well-intentioned thinkers of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's think what else. We've really gotten through a lot of stuff today on the stream. It feels a little I almost feel worn out by all of the conversation. Let's do some what arias then. So what arias, of course, is when we talk about what we're watching, listening to, reading, playing, consuming, eating, anything like that. Things that we like, that we want to recommend. Let's see. I'll start with one. We can kind of pass the ball around here, friends. I got caught back up, or I started catching back up with the show South Side over the weekend. A new season is out. It's a comedy show on HBO Max. Gun to my head today, I would say I think it's maybe the funniest comedy show being actively made. There's
Be with you in just a moment, folks. I'll be back in just a moment as soon as we get Michael back on air. Sorry about that. Apologies, y'all. Michael's computer just froze up on us. I'm not sure how long it's going to take to get him back on. Stand by and I'll let you know if we're continuing or cutting it off for the day. But I'll be back in just a moment. Yeah, we are going to be wrapping for today. We're not going to be able to get Michael back up online in time, but thank you all for hanging out with us today. Hope everybody has a good week, and we'll be talking to you next week. As far as my what arias go, I just want to suggest everybody see Shin Ultraman if they can. It's out there in theaters in America for a limited time. Hope everything's going well, and we'll see you next week.